Hello, humans. Happy Friday. You all have made it through the week. I hope it has been a decent week for you all. I want to go over a few things real quick before we get started with today. Later on, I'm going to be posting a survey deal. I'm thinking sometime next week, probably Wednesday, Thursday next week, we'll have our first quiz over stuff we've talked about so far. And I want to do kind of a review day, game, whatever you want to call it, to kind of help you guys prepare for that. So the survey is going to ask you whether or not you would like me to make you a study guide, and whether you would prefer to do a Kahoot or a Quizlet live. And my thought right now is to do that during the Zoom meeting time from 10:30 to 11:30. Have that time set aside to actually do it if you would like to. But if you would fill that out for me by Sunday night, that'd be good. That way I have time to get the study guide and the review game set up for you. Other than that, that's all I need to say. So we will go ahead and get started with our stuff for today. And yesterday we talked about climate. That's what we're talking about today. Yesterday we talked about latitude and longitude. There we go. So today we're going to talk about climate and weather and how those are linked to latitude and longitude, and why we care. Why do we here in 7th grade social studies care about the climate and weather of whatever place we're looking at? So, as always, here is our daily objective and daily question. So hopefully minutes you'll be able to tell me what weather and climate are and explain why they're important. And then the daily question, which you should have already seen, is: has there ever been a time where you had something planned that was later canceled because of weather? So we'll go ahead and get started with what is weather and what is climate. So for our purposes here in 7th grade, we will talk, 9 times out of 10, we're going to be talking about climate instead of weather. But you need to understand what the difference is. That way it makes sense when we talk about climate. So weather is simply short-term situations involving nature. So an example would be the other day when it rained all morning, or today where it is nice and sunny outside. So weather is just what is going on around you at that moment. So like right now I'm looking at my classroom window and it's not a cloud in sight. But tomorrow it could be snowing. I doubt it, but you get what I'm saying. Weather is just the short-term situation, whereas climate looks at long-term weather patterns of a region. So you might find the climate by looking at, okay, over the course of 3 months, it rained this much, or it was sunny on this many days, or the average temperature was this over the course of those 3 months, whatever. Climate is climate taking the long-term weather patterns of a region. And to do that, we will look at things like temperature. So what is the average temperature of that region for whatever time period we're looking at? How much rain do they get? What form or precipitation, what form do they get? Rain, snow, that kind of thing. And then what plant and animal life can you find in that region? And that is related to the climate. So in rainforest, you're going to find a lot more diversity of animal and plant life than you would in the desert where, it's pretty empty. So weather is just the short-term effects on a region. Climate is the long-term weather patterns of a region. So this page comes from the textbook that I have a lot of right now, but I put it up here for y'all to see in case, because this is a good illustration of what climates can look like. If you want to, I'm pretty sure you can read some of those and just see where you'll find it, what it's like there, what kind of plants we'll find, that kind of thing. But I'm going to go through and break down a few of these that we will see more often. So there's, I think, 4 that we're going to see. We see quite a bit that I want to go over to give you guys a better understanding of what I mean by when we talk about climate. But if you want to take a minute to look through this and just see what all the different climates are, it's here. But we're going to go ahead and go on to breaking down what that table shows you. So it typically tells you, or it will tell you, where you can find that kind of climate in the world typically. It's not always like that, but generally speaking, that is where you will be able to find that kind of climate. It gives you a description that tells you about rainfall, average temperatures, description of the seasons. Do they have a cold winter? Is it warm year round? And that kind of thing. It tells you what plants you may find in that climate. And then the next few slides are ones where we'll kind of look at some of these in a little bit more detail. So the first one we are going to look at is known as humid tropical. And this is typically found near the equator. And it's where you'll find a large portion of the world's rainforests along this equator region of the world. Temperatures usually average around 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit over the course of a year. The one thing that's different here is that storms occur almost daily. And the average amount of rainfall you might see in this kind of climate is anywhere from 70 inches of rain a year up to 450 inches of rain in some places. This is also where you will find the world's largest diversity of plant and animal life. You have all the different plants, animals, gorillas, tigers. Yeah, you might find tigers, but just the different variety of animals you'll find is unmatched anywhere in the world. So this is like the place for plant and animal diversity, if you will. An example of this is the Amazon rainforest in South America, the Congo rainforest in Africa, and a few others that we'll look at over the course of the school year. But that is humid tropical. Now, next one we're going to look at is tropical savanna. And this is climate can be found as you move north and south away from the equator. So as you go this way, you'll run into this tropical savanna region. It has a long, hot, dry season, followed by short periods of rain. And compared to the humid tropical, this has average temperatures as high as the mid to low 90s. But it gets less rain than the humid tropical, and it doesn't have as much plant and animal diversity as the humid tropical. Because it gets less rain on average, it can't support the kind of animal and plant life we looked at earlier. Typically what you find here is this savanna region. Usually it's tall grass with the random tree mixed in. Poor trees by himself, but typically this is what you'll find when you think of tropical savanna, is just this kind of high grass with the occasional tree or shrub mixed in. This area can support animal life, obviously, but not nearly to the extent that we saw with the humid tropical in the rainforest. And this is a climate that we'll come across quite a bit once we get into Africa and largely Africa with this one. The next one we're going to look at is desert. Oh, no. And this one seems pretty obvious. We should have a good idea of what to expect here. This climate often receives less than 10 inches of rain a year, so it hardly ever rains. And it often records some of the world's hottest temperatures. If you saw recently, the desert in Death Valley, California, recently set I believe it was a world record for the highest temperature ever recorded on the planet. And it was right around 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So it gets extremely hot in the desert regions. Typically, deserts are empty because of the heat and lack of rain. You won't find much plant or animal life here except for the few cacti, and other plants that are built for this kind of extreme heat and lack of room water. And then the last one we're going to look at is known as the steppe. And this is one that's a little confusing. It kind of looks like that tropical savanna we looked at just a second ago. And oftentimes you'll find this bordering the deserts and the tropical climate. So it's kind of like a weird in between desert and the tropical savanna, and then on to the humid tropical. It's a bit of a buffer zone, if you will. This climate region often receive a little bit more rain than the deserts, and so you can find short grasses like this, and then a few shrubs and trees along streams and rivers if there are any. So this one's probably toughest to understand, just because it looks so much like the tropical savanna one we saw. But this is kind of like a border between that tropical savanna and the desert. So it's kind of more rain than the desert, but less rain than the tropical savanna, and just the plant life is in between as well. So this is one we'll come across quite a bit, and hopefully as we get through the year. Oh, look, it's time to go home. No, I'm just kidding. But this is one we'll come across over the course of the year. So I wanted to throw it out there now that way you guys have seen it. And once we get into areas that we study where this becomes a thing we'll look at, I'll go over a little bit more in detail. But this is just to give you an idea of what to expect. So the assignment should be on the next page of the module. As always, if you guys have any questions over it, let me know. And if you would, fill out that survey that I'll post to give you an idea of how you guys would like to kind of study for this little quiz we're having next week. And other than that, I hope you guys have a good weekend, and I will see you all hopefully on Monday.